Hello there, Eric Greenwater here. So lately I've had a kind of a, I don't remember if I had one or a couple videos kind of speaking to you know, that's just the term I've heard the most, the red pill crowd. Even though I think of myself originally as the red pill crowd because that comes from the Matrix, and that was kind of our saying, take the red pill. When we were saying you need to wake up and realize what's going on around you, see past the illusion of what has been presented to you. Maybe I'll talk more about that. What I think that really means, what that word has always meant, what that word has meant to me since 1999. It's strange to think that that was so many years ago now. For those that are interested, today I'm smoking. I kind of mixed. I had a kind of pretty heavy English Latakia blend, but I didn't. I wanted a little bit of Latakia, but I didn't want a Latakia bomb. I didn't want a ton of it. And I had some of this Virginia blend that I really like, and so I kind of mixed them. So I made it a little bit more mild. So it's just got a little touch, Latakia more like a condiment, and but it's more mild. It's not so heavy, but it still has a little bit of that smokiness, that Latakia flavor, which is really good. But so I want to talk to the red pill guys again. I want to talk to young men. Um, as an older millennial, uh, I guess I am, and but I am, even though technically I'm a millennial. I've always appreciated, like I've said before, old school ways. A lot of people call me an old soul, but I want to be joyful. I want to be young at heart. That's kind of my goal. I want to have an old soul, but I want to be young at heart. Airplane here. Sorry about that. Have a little loud prop plane going by. So, yeah, last time I was calling out the red pill crowd, trying to call them away from people that I deem as bad. I see as a bad influence. I see, they're trying to be tough guys in one respect, and that's the part that's why people listen to them, and I get that. But, really in their heart, they're cowards, and I say that because, yeah, they're not afraid in one respect, but they are afraid and are not brave enough and don't have the courage enough to do the hardest thing it is for a man. The biggest challenge that men have in personal relationships and from people to people is to love a woman, to marry a wife and to care for her more than you care for yourself. This is the greatest challenge. And then the other challenge is you can do that, but not making life about her. Those things. And we'll talk more about that. But what I'm part of it is I've I've been praying for and thinking about and just had on my heart these young men, especially, that they're in this world that's really against them. And the world is always against all of us, really. But it is against, you know, increasingly so in my generation, and now, especially in this generation, we are not appreciated as men. And we're not called forth to be men, to grow up and to be men, and to lead in a righteous way. And I see this, whatever, red pill, black pill, sigma, those terms, alpha male or sigma male, and then, don't be a beta male. Whatever, all this stuff. Some of it's meaningless. In the midst of that, what I've keep coming back to is, just been thinking about it. And what I keep coming back to is a book that I read years ago. But I remember it was really good. And I feel like the people that have read it and digested it, it was good for them. And I feel like maybe we're at a time where, it's like, let's go back. And it's not even an old book. A lot of you have heard of it. Wild at Heart, John Eldredge. And it can be cheesy. 2001 was when it came out, and the early 2000s there was a lot of books like it. And some people think it's too cheesy. They don't like it for different things, and part of that is because there was this whole thing, and I remember it when I was in youth group. It was the church, at least, the evangelical church, they just loved using, movie scenes and movie quotes as their inspiration. I don't know if that was the first time that movies really kind of came into the sermons, especially in youth services and those things. And sometimes we look back on that, and it's, and it's because it's not the Bible, it's not the classics, it's not philosophy, those things. It's these, little quips and quotes, and I get it why it can be cheesy. I'm trying to get this, keep going. I'm not trying to have a big smoking big all the time like that, but just keep it lit. Stay lit. We'll see what happens. So, why I like this book, even though there's some cheesy parts, but part of it too is, think about the movies. It's using Braveheart and Gladiator, and I don't remember if it uses Last of the Mohicans. I'm about to, I think, go back and reread it fully. But I keep coming back to this book when I think about young men, and it wasn't necessarily a book that I needed because I had a dad that taught me a lot of these things, and I was in Boy Scouts, and so it was kind of, I was already there. I got more out of the follow-up book, The Way of the Wild Heart, and maybe I'll review that as well. But Wild at Heart, right? What does that mean? And it's the reason it was cheesy is because this book was so good, actually, that whole style of doing things, it started all these men's groups and all these things, but they were overdoing it on using, mostly Braveheart. Braveheart was huge. Braveheart, Gladiator, these things, they were using these things, and maybe they overdid it. They overemphasized it over the word and those things. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean they were wrong. And there's a reason that those movies that were made, in the 90s, early 2000s, they're some of my favorite movies. Why? Because they showed heroes, true heroes that were still human. They weren't superheroes. They were not the Marvel characters where they were superhuman, but they were larger than life stories, and they were based somewhat around real people or real type places, right, and events. But they're great stories for men. All right, and they're not, and they weren't the action star movie. They weren't the Conan the Barbarians and the Terminators. They weren't Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is, beyond human, and they weren't Sylvester Stallone and these other, like, they weren't this hyper masculinity of the 80s. And it was this almost sweet moment where you had these heroes that were men, but they struggled, right? They had true struggle, which is part of it, which is real. They had to dig down deep in themselves. And in doing so, fighting for what is right, they became heroes. And that's what we need in this hour. That is what we need. We need that. We need to have that kind of heart in us. Right? In the natural, we look back the last time maybe that we really had that, right? We call it the greatest generation. The men that survived, we hear their stories, the men that survived D-Day, that generation, right? And we have yet to come to a place of struggle like World War II yet. We'll see what happens. Things are heating up, things are getting crazy. But just the same, in day-to-day life, it takes that kind of courage just to be a husband and a father. And we all want that. And that's why it's such a good book, because it actually helped translate and bring down these lofty ideas, and it made it communicated in a way where a young man could read it and go, oh, my life can have meaning and purpose because I was made for this. Why do I desire this? Why do young men play video games, right? Why are they obsessed with video games? Because they want to be a hero. Now, being a hero, being a man, gets robbed from them, because being addicted to video games is the same as being addicted to pornography, the same as if all you do is watch these movies, because in one sense you can just watch Braveheart and Gladiator and Last of the Mohicans and these things, and it can be like pornography of a sort, because it's a fantasy. It's a thing you desire, and you ought to desire it, right? Pornography, you ought to desire a woman. You ought to. That is healthy. But it goes beyond the bounds of righteousness. It goes beyond that. It makes it a fantasy. And when you live in fantasy, you don't live it in reality. It's good to be inspired. It's good to be encouraged. But you can't live in this false narrative. And all around us, we live in this, right? This vision. What is the metaverse? All this junk. It's this augmented reality. It's not reality. And what's happening with the red pill guys is it's all these forces are coalescing, and they are waking up, and they're realizing, hey man, we're being bamboozled by this stuff. But they're saying check out, and the reaction is you're getting these guys like Andrew Tate, and what are they? They are these over machismo dudes that are like the guys in the 80s movies, and they're reacting. They're like, just take what you can, and it's use your strength for yourself. Men, you have strength inherently. You have strength of will, you have strength of body, you have strength of emotion. You have strength. But to submit it to, and I'm going to say it over and over again, to submit it to the care for those that are in the natural weaker than you, not less important. They don't matter less. They matter almost more. It's what you were created to do, was to protect and to guide. Though, like, your strength is not for yourself, it is for other people. That's why you were given strength. And that's why if young men ask me, like if I get into a conversation and I see, hey, you just don't have a vision for what it means to be a man, one of the tools that I would suggest, and I've found a couple copies of it, is this book, Wild at Heart, because it really gives words to what it is, a good vision of what it means to be a man. And it gives words to what to do with those desires. Yet you're not William Wallace, right? You're not Maximus. You're not Hawkeye from Last Mohicans. You're not, or the Marvel movies. You're not those guys. That's a fantasy. But why are you drawn to it? That's not a bad thing. It's not bad to be drawn to those. You're not David and his mighty men. But why are we drawn to those characters? That is good. But you can be that in one sense for your wife, for your children. You can be that to a point in their eyes. Now, obviously, they need to have grace with you, because you're going to stumble at times and you're not going to do it perfectly. But young men, you are called to that. And if there is any hope to get out of the mess that our culture is in, is for young men to rise up and be men. Be men. Not rise up and conquer and take your strength and to seek revenge for being wronged. And I've really been thinking about it, because I just wanted to watch it. I haven't watched it in a while. I watched Last Mohicans, and I listened to the audio book, which is different. I like the story of the movie better. I think they did a good job. Sometimes the movie's better than the book, and that is one of the times. But it's interesting, because you look at the antagonist, you look at Magua, the antagonist, and you do understand that he has been wronged, right? And there's a whole generation, and that's all the woke victimhood mentality is. I feel wrong, and then some people, they have been wrong. There are real victims. The problem is, instead of having true advocates, these victims are not being healed, and their victimhood is being weaponized against those who might actually help them, against those who might actually lift them up out of that. The whole woke culture keeps people in the victimhood and doesn't help them heal. It doesn't protect them. It doesn't actually fight for justice. And what it stirs up, it uses that pain, and it points it towards revenge. It's vengeful. It's not forgiving. It's not healing. It points it towards being vengeful. And then what has happened is it has the counteract to that is it creates these, because just being born a man now, you are enemy number one in the culture. And so in that it says you're evil, and so the reaction is, well, I'm just gonna take what's mine, right? And it opens up the space for being a psychopath, for being a crazy, for unleashing the strength that we have in the wrong, unhealthy direction, which creates more animosity and it creates more division. It does not help to do these things. And what we need is older men. And that's the thing. I say older men. Older men, you need to learn what it needs to be a man too. Maybe you need to read this book. Maybe you need to remember and quit being so jaded. Maybe you need to stand up and have a backbone and quit cowering in fear from the culture. We need to wake up and be men, right? And that doesn't necessarily you need to be loud and start attacking people. What we need as men, we need to begin to encourage one another and say, hey, be a man, but be a good man. If we're going to win in the right way, we need to become good men again, right? We need to, and part of that is, yes, look at these stories. That's why they move us. But look at even the same, it's the same thing. Look at Arthur, these Arthurian tales. Look at knights. Why do we love these things? Because these stories show us what it means to be men, how to be heroes. It's a story that can live in us and inspire us, and that's okay. We can do it in a way where we're not living in a fantasy and it becomes real. And so, men, let's rise up. Let's be good. Let's rise up in the right way. Let's be righteous men of honor. Right? Let we say all the time, chivalry is not dead, and it's not, but we need to pick it back up. And what is chivalry, right? Is chivalry just opening the door for women? That's an act of chivalry, and it's a small act of chivalry, but what does it mean? What does chivalry mean? Go and research this. From my understanding, what chivalry meant was that we recognized the strength and the martial prowess of a warrior, but it needed guidance and it needed vision, and what it needed, the masculine needed the feminine to guide its hand. The strength of the warrior, the sword in his hand, needed to be tempered by the vision and the nurturing heart of the feminine. It actually was a beautiful picture of how male and female work together. It was not about men dominating women. It was about together it is a powerful force. The masculine without the feminine to 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 temper it is a destructive force. And it was happening all the time in the Middle Ages, right? There's wars and all these things, And it's exactly the same. It's the same as these red pill guys that are the worst part of being masculine, right? That toxic masculinity. Well, yes, but there's a healthy masculinity, and there's a toxic femininity that if it turns on masculinity, it destroys its protection, and then it is open to attack, and and it doesn't lead to good, and it attacks femininity because feminine's trying to be masculine and powerful, but it's not, and it loses its balance, and these things are meant to work together. And the ultimate picture of this is man and wife becoming together, husband and father becoming one flesh and creating what? Life. Creating life. That is amazing. We get to create life. Children. Continuous generations. It's not just perpetuating the gene pool. The basis of all civilization and culture and reality is the family, because it's together that it creates life. And you try to break that apart, all you get is death and selfishness and pride and brokenness and war and strife. All the toxic, broken parts of humanity, male, female, when you pit them against each other, all it creates is death and destruction and havoc and chaos. And there's these forces that they have been convinced that those things are wrong, and somehow those things are somehow white man came up with it's white supremacy that we have families, that we have husbands and wives and children. Are you kidding me? That is all of humanity has had that, no matter what race, color, religion you are. Everybody has known until 2 seconds ago that was the basis of civilization, because without it you have nothing. It just dies. It becomes nothing. If you don't nurture your children and your relationships, what do you have? Nothing. But to get back to that place, what do we need? We need men to be men. Not to have hissy fits, but just to get a backbone, be a man, and use your strength to help others and to love others. And if you like that vision, one step you can take, maybe two things you can read. Read your Bible, first and foremost. And maybe pick up John Eldredge, Wild at Heart. Man or woman, right? If you're a woman and you want to know like how to encourage your husband, your sons, the men in your life, how to act towards them, this is a book for you as well. Let's read it. Let's get into it. It's good. Let's become good men and women. Let's become good people. Let's try. Let's strive towards these things, and we'll have a better culture. Right? Because it's not enough to vote in November for a certain person and put it on their shoulders. It ain't going to make a bit of difference whether your guy gets in or gal, whatever you want. Whatever you want, it does not matter who gets in the White House if the rest of us don't fight for the culture and don't become better people. If we don't pray, if we don't humble ourselves, if we don't stand up and just be good people, it ain't going to make a bit of difference. We're going to lose. But if we do that, in the midst of hardship, in the midst of hard things, and sometimes it's these types of, when things get hard, sometimes that's what wakes us up. And that's okay. God uses that. May He wake us up. And may we become better people. All right. God bless you. Keep you. May His face shine upon you. May He give you rest. Amen.